So the keynote address then is, as we've been doing for the last several years, is presented by the recipient of the Dr. John Granito Award. And do current fire service issues offer political and operational leadership challenges by Chief Dennis Compton. And so we'll let Dennis get started.
Interesting title, I think, because if someone were to ask me, and I get asked once in a while, but if someone were to ask me today what I think is the most significant shortcoming in the development, and Dennis and I have talked about this before, in the development of future senior leaders and managers in the fire service. I think, and there's a whole list of things people need, but I think the most significant shortcoming is political science. You see, there's not a single resource you will ever get, those of you who are in fire departments, there's not a single resource you'll ever get that somebody who was elected to a position didn't vote yes to give it to you. Okay? I learned a long time ago that the difference between a good idea and a bad idea is one more than half the votes. Now, you may not like that. That may not be, something that you say, wow, I'm glad we do it that way. But any of you that have ever been fire chiefs, you know that. It's an absolute fact. So as we look at our challenges that we have, you ask yourself, are there operational and management solutions to those problems? Absolutely, there are. Those issues, those challenges we face. But you also got to ask yourself, I think, are there political solutions to those problems that we absolutely need to address? Now, I kind of buy into that definition of leadership. I really do and have for some time. It's the ability to influence people. And it doesn't have to be positive. Leadership does not have to be positive. But it's the ability to influence the behavior, the attitude, the performance of people. And that is leadership. Now, with that said, as I was looking at the leadership requirements for the next few years for the fire service here last year, and in 2013, in fact, about April, I conducted a survey because of a presentation that I needed to make at the Metro Chiefs in April. And I conducted a survey of fire chiefs, Metro Chiefs. Metro Chiefs, by the way, are the fire chiefs of the larger fire departments in the country, okay? There are about 300 members of the Metro Chiefs, the largest fire chiefs in the country. And I asked them two simple questions. I mean, coast to coast, north to south. Two simple questions. What is the most significant challenge facing your fire department between now and the end of 2015? And what's the most significant challenge you think the fire service faces on a national level during that same period of time? What do you think they are? Okay? Now, I'm going to go over these with you briefly because that's not really the intent of this presentation. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. But if you want to know what challenges the American Fire Service is facing, at least the career fire service in the metro areas, here they are. Here they are. Okay? And as we look at them, I would ask you to not only think about them from the standpoint of operational challenges, management challenges, but I want you to think about them from the standpoint of political challenges. And then we're going to talk about the politics of that a little bit at the latter part of this. Now, what I did for this presentation is I combined them. So I don't have a presentation for you that here's what I think it is for my fire department, and here's what I think it is for the National Fire Service. There was a theme to this. There was a theme. Do you think that some people put it that it was their fire department's major challenge, while other people put the issue as the fire service nationally as their major challenge? Same issue, but coming from different perspectives? Yes, they did. But here's the theme. Here's the theme, okay? Understanding the Affordable Care Act and its impact on fire service-based EMS systems. We all know that that's in the process. We all know that it is going to affect pre-hospital 911 emergency services. And more than that, we all know, or should know by now, that there are going to be opportunities for fire-based EMS systems in this. Opportunities we've never had before. the question isn't whether they will be there. The question is which ones will your fire department, those individual fire departments, decide fits their system and take advantage of. Okay? I think, in fact, and the second one here on social issues, because it relates so much to fire-based EMS systems, is really thrown into that. But I honestly believe that the decisions that are made in fire-based EMS over the next 4 years, 5 years, will be as important to the fire service as the decisions that were made in the 1970s, early and late in the 1970s, as to whether or not to get into fire-based EMS in the first place. It's going to have that much impact on the future of those systems. Okay? Now, people ask me all the time, what can I do to help at the national level with issues? Because I can't travel, I can't go back there, I can't sit on this, I can't sit on that. Well, I got one for you. Okay? And everyone in this room can do it. Steve Austin and I co-chair the Fire Service-Based EMS Advocates Steering Committee in Washington, D.C. And we started it, in fact. We've been doing that since 2006. We advocate for fire-based EMS systems. We do not advocate against any systems, but we advocate for fire-based systems. Okay? Join the advocates. Doesn't cost anything. You don't have to do anything except join. Now, those of you who have been involved in politics for any period of time at all, when someone goes into a room and wants to talk to somebody about an issue, and that issue is important to them, does it matter whether or not they have a long list of supporters that believe in their issue as well and that they're there to speak on behalf of? Does that make any difference whatsoever? Then join the advocates. Help us. Doesn't cost anything. You don't have to do anything. Write this down. You don't have it. www.fireserviceems, as if it were one word, .com. www.fireserviceems.com. Organizations can join, individuals can join, lots of state organizations and national organizations are members. The steering committee of that group is the IFF, the IFC, the Congressional Fire Services Institute, the NFPA, and the National Volunteer Fire Council. Okay, so that is our steering committee, but we've got a ton of other members and we can use a lot more. Okay, so please join. You want to know what you can do? Join. Don't wait for 2 weeks to join because you won't join. Join, okay? Also, better educating policymakers and the general public about the role of fire service. In all of the surveys that you see being done, all of them, the general public simply does not have a keen sense of the multifaceted role of the American Fire Service. What we do for them day to day and what we do for them in the really difficult times that occur for our country and regions of our country. They just don't. Okay? They just don't. Your chiefs around the country feel that that's a significant issue. And if it's not addressed, it's going to cause other problems for the fire service. The image of firefighters. Any of you seen anything with that here? Some chiefs thought this was the most significant issue facing the American Fire Service. Is this issue of pensions, the political climate, the fact that is not a public image problem yet, that's a political problem right now, is that what is happening to us as a service is plain and simple if you just step back and look at it. Is that the firefighters, the fire service, has significant influence politically in this country. Locally, statewide, regionally, and nationally. We do. Congratulations. We do. With the downturn in the economy came opportunities to change that. Okay? And we have opponents, elected opponents, that are taking advantage of these times. They're the same, some of them are the same old people. John and I laugh about it all the time. Some of the, Leonard Matteries, and these people come out of the 1970s. Holy cows. And now they've got these progressive ideas that we listened to 35 years ago. But the only difference is we don't have any money. So they see an opportunity to take our influence away. That's a political issue. And also the credibility of the fire service could be damaged if that is not addressed. And I think my point there and their point there is that their point there was not. My point is that someone besides the unions need to do a little bit more about this. Right now, the lead on this issue is the IFF. And it's about time the rest of us bellied up to the bar, even if it's a little bit risky. We have got to deal with our image, okay? Addressing overall firefighter safety and staffing issues, what they were getting at there more than anything else is the complexities of dealing with the issues that we have today in a declining economy when it's affecting our capability to staff fire departments. It's affecting our capability to essentially implement safety practices in some situations. And it's difficult to keep the store open. That's what they're saying. It's difficult to keep the store open on a day-to-day basis. Transitioning to a new fire chief more regularly. Anybody know what the average tenure is now of a metropolitan fire chief in this country? Just under 5 years. You remember the days when we had chiefs that had, I worked for one of them forever. You know, I mean, they were born there and then some of them died there. I mean, you remember those times. It's gone. Like my grandson used to say, gone. It's all gone. It's gone. Less than 5 years. Okay? That causes some interesting challenges. It's no longer a periodic transition in an organization. It's a regular transition in an organization. Federal funding and the impact of that on local communities. I can take you to departments all around the country that if anything happened to SAFER right now, you'd see thousands of firefighters laid off nationwide. If anything happened to that grant program right now. Thousands are funded by SAFER, okay? The overall impact of labor management relations in addressing these issues. Several chiefs said that we have got to do a better job of that. Some organizations do that very well. But others, you got to admit, on a good day, operate from the standpoint of a lack of trust and a lack of respect for each other. It's kind of like I'll see you're an idiot and raise you an imbecile. And then we're going to solve our problems together. If we can't deal with each other day to day, we're not going to solve a whole lot of big problems together. I love this one. This came out of Oregon, and he said it better than anyone said it. But that's creating a different path forward as the economic conditions improve, and not just focusing on getting back what we lost. And what he's saying is you're probably not going to get back what we lost if that's all you want. In other words, we want to reinstate everything we lost and go back to the future. Probably not going to happen. They're not going to fund it. The economy gave people a cover to cut a major part of their budget, and that's the fire department. It gave them cover to cut police department budgets. The economy did. They wanted to cut those things for a long time. And politically, it wasn't feasible. It gave them the opportunity to do that. Replacing infrastructure needs, like what? What has been on hold in our fire departments ever since the economy kind of dumped? What's an infrastructure need in a fire department? Anybody? What's part of an infrastructure in a fire department? A fire station, a fire truck, a communication system. Those are all things that the life has been extended on because they haven't been replaced or maintained. And what's going to happen to those as the clock keeps ticking? You know, that's what they're talking about here. Sooner or later, the bill's going to come due. In fact, it's here now. The bill is due. The impact of prevention on suppression resource. This came out of Sal Casano in New York City, and he's a brilliant man. I'll tell you what, he truly is. If you don't know him, he's an ex-commissioner there. But he says this, and I had to call him and ask him about it because I really couldn't quite grasp what he was talking about. At first I read it, it sounded negative, but it isn't. What he was saying was it's a challenge for us to represent the need for maintaining resources for fire suppression as the number of fires continue to decrease and as the number of fire deaths continue to decrease. Okay? And the point he was trying to make is this, is that if you had 7 fires a day in the day, back in the day, and you're having 3 fires a day now in your city, working fires, that you ought to be able to reduce your resources to respond to those fires. But Sal's point is this, is that those fires don't happen 7 at a time. And they don't happen 3 at a time, usually. They happen 1 at a time. And you have to have the resources to respond to each one of those individually to be effective at that incident and to be safe at that incident. And somehow getting that into the mix of decisions was a significant challenge for him. Very insightful, I think. Okay, political leadership equals political influence, I think. Okay? This is all about leadership. This is not about politics. It's all about leadership, but I think they go hand in hand with one another. To institutionalize something means that it becomes a systemic part of that process. It's institutionalized into the organization and into the culture. We need to institutionalize political influence more so than we have in the past, locally, state and regional, and nationally. We have to quit spitting when we use the word politics. Okay. Like I said a few minutes ago, where do your resources come from? A political process. I mean, here's a political science professor. Where does it all come from? Yes. Yeah, they don't give that to us because we're warm and wonderful. It comes from a process that we have to be engaged in and engaged in effectively. Okay? Some people do that very, very well. Don't get me wrong. We have excellent capability in that area. But have you ever worked in a fire department where the principal leader in that fire department was politically impotent? You don't have to raise your hand or anything. They might be here. Okay? If the answer is yes, then all you have to do is ask yourself what was going on in that fire department at the time. What did your stations look like? What quality of equipment did you have? What quality were your rigs? What was the morale in that fire department while they were politically impotent? They stayed away from it. That's all you got to ask yourself. The public image of the fire service is important to the overall success of fire departments, is another presumption I make in dealing with these issues that we have. With that being said, the conduct and performance of our members can either be helpful or it can be very hurtful to us in that process. I remember one time when I was in school, I was in grade school, I was in about the 6th grade, and I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger, okay? Matter of fact, I think you had to know sin to fight it later in your life, so I knew a lot about sin, okay? When I was younger. And my mom, after about a 3rd trip to the school in about 2 weeks, took me off to the side at home. And she told me, Denny, sometimes you shovel it in faster than I can shovel it out. I'll never forget that, because what did she mean? She meant that for all the good that some of the people in this room do regarding this issue, in fact, Dennis was involved in putting together a code of conduct and ethics because of this issue, essentially, and so were some others in the room, okay? For all the good that you can do over a period of time, how easy is it to really mess that up? Okay. And you think, well, that's been going on for years. When we misbehaved, there wasn't an internet. When we misbehaved, there was not social media. When we misbehaved, it wasn't viral. The problems I had were viral had nothing to do with that. is you can't do it today. And then we're so damn proud of it sometimes that we post it on YouTube so everybody can see it. Hey, look how stupid we are. Look how much we're wasting public funds. Look how irresponsible we are. And then what image do we try to portray to the public and to elected officials so that we can influence them? Sometimes, y'all, I'm not picking on anybody and I'm not going to tell any stories, but I've got a ton of them, okay, about this in recent years. And you know a lot of them anyway, is we got to get a handle on this. We cannot have fire chiefs stealing money. We cannot have firefighters acting like idiots, on duty and off duty. We cannot be abusive to people. We can't be beating the hell out of people off duty and then professing that we should get away with that because we're firefighters. We can't be doing that stuff anymore. Politically, it puts our supporters in a bad situation. And it puts our opposition in a great situation because they play off of it. So what does that mean? Fire service, if they want to be more influential, they need to be more active in community as community participants in a lot of different ways that are mission related, hopefully, so that it doesn't look like we're pandering, okay? Involved in key decisions in the community, and not just our own, but others that go on in the community as well. We need to show that we care and that we're supported by community leaders. Where do members of city councils and legislatures and even Congress, where do they come from? Where do they build their resumes to get elected? Pardon? Say that? They do it on community boards, school boards, planning commissions. They do it where you meet community leaders. If the fire department wants to be viewed as a community leader, where do you kind of got to show up? Where the community leaders hang out. And if we don't, we're going to have issues. Communications with management, elected officials, agency heads, and staff has to be a priority. And I'm talking about elected staff. I got to tell you this story because I still laugh about it to this day. I've shared it with Steve Austin many times. I'm sitting in the office of a member of Congress named Rob Andrews. Part of our caucus, very much a supporter, and I've got a meeting with him that day. And he got called out to a vote. You ever been in a congressional office? They sound the deal and everybody has to go vote. So he went to vote and I was waiting. This guy comes in and he walks up to the receptionist and he says, "I've got a meeting with Congressman Andrews." And he gives her his name. She says, "Congressman Andrews had to go to the floor for a vote, but I've arranged for a member of his professional staff," who was standing right in the doorway, by the way, "to meet with you." Okay? He says to her and to him, he says, "I didn't come here to meet with any damn staffer." I had to turn my head because I was laughing so damn hard. Because you know what was going through my mind? Is, "Buddy, I don't know what you came here for today, but you aren't going to get it." You are history. You are history. Who controls a lot of that stuff? Who controls access? Who controls I'm sitting in a lunchroom in one of the congressional office buildings one time. And you remember Fred Thompson, Law and Order Fred Thompson, Senator Fred Thompson? He's sitting there with a young staff person. I'm sitting at a table right across from him with a staff person from the CFSI, in fact. And they're talking about a committee meeting they've got going on that afternoon. Okay? And the staff person is briefing the senator. And the staff person brings up an agenda item. The senator says, "Well, I don't agree with that." Staff member says, "With all due respect, sir, yes, you do." Says, "You're on record 3 times, public record 3 times agreeing with that. You have to support it in the meeting. I didn't come here to meet with any damn staffer." God. I mean, I had to turn my head up. I was laughing to myself so hard. Okay? Interaction with school boards and stuff, like we said a few minutes ago. I know of a fire chief who was going to be out of town during a 20-year regional planning meeting that they were going to have in his area. 20 years. Now, there's not very many things you can plan for 20 years for, but land is one of them. Communication systems is another one. There are things that they do plan for. He was going to be out of town, and he wasn't going to send anybody to that meeting from his department. Now, I'm absolutely positive that towards the end of that meeting, someone would have said, hey, wait a minute. The fire department's not here. We need to make sure that we allocate some money to the fire department so they can get what they need. So we're all going to give them some of what we've been able to get out of this. Yeah, right. That's really going to happen. That isn't going to happen. Huge political mistake. Huge, huge. Some people don't view politics in this broader framework. Politics to them is simply initiatives, referendums, elected officials, that kind of thing. And it's not. It's much broader than that. We live in a world that the power comes from partnerships, coalitions, and positive relationships. Now, there are people that don't agree with me on this, but my experience in my career has been this, that you deal with day-to-day problems and issues with policies and procedures that are in place. You run the day-to-day operations of an organization through policies and procedures. When something big happens, you deal with it through relationships. And if you don't have them, you're screwed. People will either help you solve that problem, or they won't. And a lot of it's relationships. When do you make those relationships? When do you develop those relationships? Over years and years and years and years. Okay. Integrating fire service leaders into local leadership arena validates the fire service. It's like carbon monoxide. It can have an effect over time that's cumulative. Okay? Is when we show up on a regular basis, you want to be viewed as a community leader, as a fire chief, you got to show up where community leaders hang out. If you don't, you won't. And Steve Austin taught me this better than anybody, but become a trusted advisor and a resource to elected officials and their staff members. What's a trusted advisor? What is a trusted advisor? Say that louder, Dennis.
Somebody tells them the truth every time.
The whole truth, right? They'll tell them the truth every time, even if it's not to their benefit. And if there's somebody that's opposing their position and is going to come out publicly with that statement, they tell them about it so they don't get blindsided by it. They go ahead and tell them about it. Okay? When they know they can call you, they know you'll get back to them right away, they know what you tell them you can go to the bank on, and they know you'll be honest with them. You're a trusted advisor. How are they going to use the information that they're given by that person that they've called? How might an elected official use that information? We should not minimize this. They're liable to use it publicly, out of their mouths or on something that they're acknowledged as having written. That's a big deal. And if we give them bad information and they provide it to someone publicly, that you are no longer a trusted advisor. That is over. Okay? Now, how in the world would someone know to call you in the first place if they didn't know you? If we aren't engaged with decision makers, policy makers, if they don't know us, elected officials, how do they know to call you? They don't. They don't. So you got to develop those relationships to even have a chance at becoming a trusted advisor, and then you don't ever breach it. If they call you about something you don't know the answer to, what do you tell them? Political Science 101, what do you tell them? I don't know, but I'll find out and get back with you. What's your timeline on this? Always ask them that. When do you need this? So that you can get back to them while they can still use it. So get to know them, build relationships with them, and just as Dennis said, tell the truth and tell the truth all the time, no matter how painful it might be. Chief Compton, what can we do to help at the national level? They ask again, okay? Well, one thing you can do is join the Fire Service-based EMS Advocates. Simple to do. Another thing you can do is support the Congressional Fire Services Institute. Okay? The Congressional Fire Services Institute is made up of over 40 national fire organizations. IFF, IFC, NFPA, IFSTA, on and on and on, over 40. And they come to consensus on issues that they're going to move through a policy issue, through federal agencies, a legislative issue through Congress or the administration or both. In other words, we come to consensus on those and we offer resolutions on those. It's tough economic times everywhere. There's not an organization around that's not having difficulty. You know, there isn't, no matter what their mission is. What can I do to help? The Congressional Fire Services Institute has a dinner once a year. It's the major fundraiser for that organization. Along with it is seminars. It's a great event. If you've never been there, go if you can. Go. It's in Washington, D.C. If you can't do that, if that's not possible, they have an associates program that you can join online. Offer anywhere from $25 to a lot more. It's up to you. But you can help give them the resources they need to do what? Represent us. Represent us. You know? Gee, Chief, what can we do to help? Well, you've got two things here this morning that you could go back and with very little skin in the game, you can do both of those, both of them. Many organizations have fantastic government affairs people in Washington, D.C. Dennis and others in here work with them regularly. Very talented people, very capable people. Fire service issues from the standpoint of politics, when you're trying to resolve things like the problems we talked about, the challenges we talked about at the beginning, they should never be framed as a partisan issue. And you know why. All you're doing is asking for good times and bad times. When things get partisan between the parties, it depends on who's in power, how good things are for you. They're American issues. They're public safety issues. Those of you in the room who are fire chiefs, you learned that already. They're public safety issues. The people who will benefit from this are the people in the community. The people who will benefit are their constituents. So the people they're really representing when they make the right decisions are their constituents. We make a difference. Our fire departments make a huge difference in policy that impacts the fire service daily. And it truly does. You know, I'm not just standing here saying that. It impacts us daily in ways that we don't even know are going on. Okay? At all of those levels. And finally, just a couple things that I would share with you. Kind of bring this back home a little bit, I think. If that definition I gave you before has anything to do with leadership, if it does, I don't know the answer to that. It's just my opinion. Okay? But I've sure seen it over time. If that's true, then a question you need to ask yourselves and answer for yourselves. I can't answer it, neither can anyone else. Do current fire service issues that we have, and they came from your fire chiefs and your major, those fire chiefs protect over 80% of the people in this nation. Those fire chiefs, the metropolitan fire chiefs, those 300 and so fire departments, 350 I think it is, they protect over 80% of the population of the United States. Okay? So the challenges that they have offered us, do current fire service issues offer both political and operational challenges to us that will affect our decision-making and thus affect the outcomes? Do they? You can manage yourself into oblivion and not make much progress on any of them without integrating influence with decision makers. Okay? You know, speaking of influence, there are some people here in this room today that have influenced me a lot, a lot. One of them is John Hoagland back there. John and I have been friends since 1978. And to this day, I learn from John Hoagland. Every chance I get to talk to him, I talk to him. He's one of those people like Harold Mace. They think about things. And it really, you can learn from them. John Granito thinks in weird ways sometimes. But boy, can you learn from him. I learned how to deal with airlines, just in closing here. Some of you may know, but my bag got lost last night, okay? I finally got it at 1 o'clock this morning, so I stayed up to get it, okay? Well, John told me a story about how he saw that resolved one day. And he said he was standing in line at the airport, and this guy in front of him walks up to the ticket counter, and he said, hey, I'm flying to Washington, Reagan. He said, I've got 2 bags. I want this one here to go with me to Reagan. I want that one there to go to Colorado Springs. Lady says, sir, we can't do that. He said, well, you did it last week. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
We've got some time for some questions about anyone. Anything for Chief Compton? Question? Yes, please.
Chief Compton, you made a good point on posting and YouTube and whatever's out there right now that everybody posts. Should we stop telling them to stop posting, or should we be teaching them what they can post? Because they're going to do it. I have 19 and 20-year-old girls in the house that are always on their little phones. Is it best not to do it, or is it best to teach them what they can post?
You know, I don't know what would be best in every situation, but I do know that the approach the fire service is taking is developing policies that they can train around, that they can teach the appropriate use of it. There's a lot more than just what's good and bad or distasteful. You know, sometimes some of the HIPAA regulations get violated by those posts. I mean, it's not intentional at all, but you can't do that. You can't show that kind of information of somebody who's in a medical emergency. You can't do that. So I would say to you is that firefighters can do anything you want them to do, I've noticed in my career, if they're trained. If we think we're going to punish our way to paradise with that issue, God, I hope you got a lot of patience, because that's not going to happen. It's going to be training, and really, and I don't mean just the training has to include the impact it has on the organization, real life, you know, real life. Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you all very much.